Spider-Man: The New Animated Series is a show made in the early 2000s following the success of the first Spider-Man movie. It has received praise and respect from multiple YouTubers such as Captain Midnight, Godzilla Mendoza, Brown Table, Johnny Tucellos, and Nintendo, as well as many others. Many of these videos have several thousand, if not several 100,000 views, with the Johnny Tucellos videos having well over 1 million views. Even channels that don't typically get views will have thousands of views on a video praising new animated series. These videos also have comment sections filled with people talking about just how good this version of Spider-Man is and how it's up there with the 90s Spider-Man and spectacular. However, they are all wrong, and this show is horrendous. Perhaps I sound overly critical.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Perchance. So let's go through the reasons people have this show rated so highly, one by one. The first reason is the show's maturity. This is a generally agreed upon aspect of the show that is considered good, if not amazing. It's consistently praised and raised to the forefront, even going so far as to have it be a defining feature that separates it from other Spider-Man shows. They cite that the show's college setting, willingness to kill off characters, use of cuss words, and characters drinking alcohol, along with its realistic handling of bullying in the party episode, sets it apart from other shows. Another is that it is a solidly written show and has characters that grow and develop throughout the show, with creative and interesting original characters and an intense climactic 2-episode finale. Some people think the voice acting is good, with some even going so far as to shout out Peter's voice actor Neil Patrick Harris. So before we discuss the show's faults and disprove the supposed strengths it has, I shall give the show some credit, as there are times when it doesn't completely fall apart. Easily the show's greatest strength is Harry Osborn. He's fine in the early episodes, but the writers really find their footing with him in episode 3 or so, and he becomes a standout character in the latter half of the show. Flash Thompson is also an entertaining character. The showrunners really nailed his personality, and he has an interesting dynamic of hating Peter and loving Spider-Man. Absolute classic. Loved it in the comics, love it in the movies, love it in the show. The lighting and shading in the show is generally pretty good. Outside of that, there aren't any consistent positives in the show. But what about its maturity? Its dark themes and solid writing! The deaths are inconsistent and often they're for simple shock value. Just because someone dies in a show doesn't inherently make it mature. If Big Mouth had characters die every episode, does it suddenly make that show mature? If Bubble Guppy started featuring characters near the end of an episode and hard cutting to a grave, does it suddenly make that show mature? I thought so. So, let's start going through this episode by episode. Episode 1 starts with college students protesting the possibility of their housing project getting bulldozed. We then get introduced to the main trio, Peter, MJ, and Harry. Setting the dynamic between them, Peter then tries to get closer and take a photo of a gem that they are unveiling that is set to be added to the museum. This is when his spider sense goes off, and a villain whose name we'll find out is Turbojet comes and steals the gem. Now it is interesting that he goes out of his way to stop and then does this weird suck from this instead of just grabbing the gem and speeding off. But whatever, he moves so fast there's no way anyone can keep up with him. Spider-Man then casually keeps up with Turbo, who is moving so fast the cars look like snails and nut-encrusted honey. How did he change to his suit and then catch up when Turbo had such a head start? Now I'm well aware that Spider-Man is fully capable of changing to his suit quickly. However, Turbo is moving so fast the cars look like they're not moving at all, and Peter is in a public crowd, meaning he would have had to first leave the crowd without drawing any attention, and only then could he change and catch up on the ridiculous distance Turbo had built up to at this point. So it makes no sense when Spider-Man isn't able to keep up with him later on. It's not as if Spider-Man is portrayed as out of stamina and can't keep up with him anymore. It's ridiculous. Spider-Man then asks random people if they saw him and they just hate on him. Well, yes, even in the Raimi movies, which this is supposedly loosely based off of, though there are clear deviations, there were people who didn't like Spider-Man. There were also a lot of people who loved him, and he was quite popular. Even if they're trying to be a little different, starting the show off with such an extreme opinion is just strange and isn't ever really explained. Now you may argue that this isn't that closely related to the Raimi film anyways, just look at Harry. However, this doesn't give a good enough reason as to why Spider-Man is so disliked, as this version of J. Jonah Jameson's influence clearly isn't as pervasive as it is in other depictions of him, as normally people clearly cite him or the Daily Bugle as a reason for not liking Spider-Man, usually something along the lines of, "The Daily Bugle was right about you." Anyways, after this, it then cuts to the intro, which is garbage. But hey, if you like it, then great for you. No real notes on it. Well, to be fair, there are minor sections I kind of like, but it isn't on the same level as, say, the opening to the 90s animated series or Spectacular Spider-Man. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be on the same level as those. I'm just saying it's on the opposite end, or at the very least closer to the opposite end than it is to say those two. No matter, we need to discuss the opening any further. So, while everyone knows that the show has bad animation, and I won't be harping on it too much, its character acting is still so fucking autistic. Like, just look at this cop. This dude looks like me when I talk to my friend's mom.
Officer Barr, do we know how the ruby thief came to be here?
We're not positive, but Spider-Man was seen in the area. The residents chased him away.
So anyways, it zooms out to show Peter watching this news broadcast on Harry's TV, a classic trope in superhero media. Now this scene showcases Harry's hatred for Spider-Man, exposition on Turbo, and their individual opinions on him. Now this would be fine, if not a good scene in fact, if the dialogue and voice acting wasn't so stiff and awkward. Kind of like me as I read over the script. Anyways, Harry continues complaining about costume-wearing vigilantes, and then MJ just makes a remark. The way the line is written doesn't sound like a response to Harry. It sounds like the writers thought about what MJ's opinions on Turbo were and just haphazardly put them on a script without thinking about how to do this organically. This is made worse by the fact that the way she says this sounds like one of those pre-recorded responses you get when you're calling about your insurance. Unfortunately, a lot of the dialogue and voice acting sounds like this, especially from MJ.
For optimal viewing. I tell you, those costume nuts are all a menace if you ask me.
If this turbojet did purposely help all those people, he gets my vote. Agree or disagree?
Now, to be fair to the episode, the scene following this shows Harry being manipulated by his board of directors to be the one to make the announcement of building a new science center, and it's actually pretty decent. And the scene following this is Spider-Man goofing off and complaining to his camera while he references Batman. That's also pretty funny. You know what? Maybe the show isn't that bad. Turbojet then shows up and makes a robbery. Spider-Man tries stopping him, is shaken off, and then somehow catches up to him again. But he didn't catch up with him last time. But the time before that, he did catch up to him even though the distance was even greater. Okay, you get the point. The speed scaling doesn't make any sense at all. I'm sure you're aware of this episode's problem, so I'll speed this along. Kill me now. So anyways, Turbo gets away again, and the next scene we see is of the protest. Peter and MJ are arguing over the morality of Turbojet. Stilted voice acting aside, this isn't too bad. Harry then tries to tell his friends that Oscorp is involved, but it's too loud, leading to the classic case of yelling something private out loud right when the crowd goes silent. I do think it's a little weird that this one dude nudging one dude is enough to get this whole protest to go completely silent, but whatever. The crowd gets mad and the gang have to leave. We later see Turbo working on his suit in the school dorms. It cuts to Spider-Man, who just happens to be nearby to see the light flashing in Turbo's room. First of all, it's cheap that he just stumbles upon Turbo's place. It would have been nice seeing Peter think through where Turbo can be and eventually find out where he is using his wits rather than just him happening to be in the area. Second of all, why is it weird that a college dorm has a light flashing through the windows? It's not as if college students are known to party. And third of all, if he found Turbojet because of his spider sense, then that doesn't make any sense for reasons you'll see later on in the show. Spider-Man then follows Turbo to him selling stolen goods for money. This proves Spider-Man's suspicions and he goes to confront him. Cops get there, Turbo gets away, yada yada yada, you know the formula. To further speed this along, later on in this episode, we see Harry making his announcement, and while he's in the midst of this, Turbo shows up and steals the artifact that Harry was holding. Spider-Man then webs up one of the escape routes to stop Turbo, and for some reason Turbo just stays there. With how fast he can just go in literally any other direction. They're on an open campus. It's not like he's in a Redditor's room with a door blocked by a wall of semen. Spider-Man then reveals that Turbo badmouthed the people but has no evidence for it. It's not like he has a recording, he just says that Turbo says this and people believe him, which makes no sense. Everyone hates Spider-Man and loves Turbo. Normally in these sorts of plots, the people have a good reason to believe the hero because of the evidence that's presented before them, typically either a video or a recording of their voice, but here people just believe Spider-Man because he says so? Turbo then uses his weird force powers to slowly throw a potted plant at Spider-Man, and it actually hits him? How? With how fast and agile Spider-Man is, he gets hit by a slow-moving potted plant? Am I the only one who hears how ridiculous that sounds? That also goes back to what I was saying earlier about spider sense and helping him find the criminal. It doesn't even help him dodge a freaking potted plant. Not only does it hit him, but it's a strong enough hit that it brings Spider-Man down long enough for Turbo to use his slow-ass force powers to go through the policeman, get MJ, and get a head start on running away. Like, what? Never, like, this whole situation is so stupid. This isn't even, like, taking into account the fact that he could have done all of this way better by just using his super speed. And again, just why? There's no reason for him to suddenly kidnap MJ. Spider-Man then not only catches up to Turbo again, but attaches webs to Turbo and the surrounding area. And just look for yourself. Yeah, just look for yourself.
that case... Nice punch. I'd take a few steps back if I were you. Seriously, ow.
Turbo should be dead. Full stop. Even if Peter just held his fist out, he should be dead. Let alone with him winding his fist up and punching him straight into the ground. Yet this dude just drops to the floor like he just got knocked out. What? The episode then ends with Peter and MJ kissing. Yes, it's out of nowhere. Just look at this. This is never brought up again, by the way. So the first episode is just riddled with inconsistencies, poorly written dialogue, and bad voice acting. Now, if the rest of the show was amazing or even just good, then I wouldn't be reacting to the show the way that I am now. But the whole show is like this, if not worse. I won't torture you by going through every episode in the same amounts of detail as I did here. However, I will still showcase some of the biggest and funniest flaws of each episode. And so we'll start this episode with the lightning round of flaws. Peter seems to share a place with Harry, yet Harry forces him to pay rent even though Harry is wildly rich and is usually depicted as understanding of Peter's financial problems. Peter just believes the FBI tried to get Spider-Man's attention by terrorizing people. If this was actually the FBI, they should be able to find a better way of contacting him. But, to be fair, later revealed that the FBI guys were just random theater actors Kingpin hired. But then this also brings forth a slew of problems, such as, if I'm able to see the problems with this, how is Spider-Man not able to think through this himself and see that this is highly suspicious? Furthermore, if Kingpin is just hiring actors for this, why is he hiring it in the same city Spider-Man resides in? He has connections and wealth. He should have hired better actors who live farther away from New York who are also still obscure. And that's not something that's that intelligent of a thought process. That's just basic thinking. Anyways, also the situation the FBI proposes is stupid. The FBI or the CIA or really the government in general could have pulled off this break-in that they're asking Spider-Man to do by himself, by the way. Like, they don't even offer support. Not only is this weird from the perspective that a government agency can't break into some place, yet Spider-Man can. Even though the situation they outlined, they absolutely could do it. It's weird that Spider-Man doesn't catch up onto this. Peter is supposed to be intelligent, yet he just doesn't catch on to anything this episode. Peter and MJ's interactions are strange when they kiss literally at the end of the last episode. Kingpin has a Burger Planet thing on his limo for whatever reason, even though it inherently makes it easier for Spider-Man to tail him if he finds out he was lying. For some reason, there's another limo that has a Burger Planet thing on it, and it's not as if Kingpin did this in person or on a phone call to tell other limos to have this for some reason. So it just comes off as contrived, stupid, and poorly written that Spider-Man just happened to find the only other limo with a Burger Planet on it. The swinging animation here is pretty good, to be fair. What is up with Kingpin's ridiculous wand? How is Kingpin able to actually get away when just in the episode prior we're shown Spider-Man's ridiculous feats of speed? The way the real FBI connect the crime to Peter using his phone call is kind of smart. A little crazy that they're either just happening to hear specifically Peter's phone call or that they listen to everyone's phone call around that time. But it's the FBI, so I'm not gonna complain about that. Well, that could be realistic, so who knows? Overall, I like the segment. Why did the FBI leave in New Jersey, though? How isn't Peter able to get to the theater on time, given how easy it was for him to keep up with Turbojet? Peter asked Harry for his help, specifically for his influence at Oscorp. Why doesn't Peter ask for financial help when he already lives with him? Why is Peter paying rent? I still don't get that. Spider-Man intentionally crashes a helicopter and does nothing about it. That should have killed many people, yet is never brought up.
One word, liposuction. Oh.
Too bad we lost Spider-Man, but this will do. Yeah, okay.
How does he possibly survive here, unscathed? Writers just wrote themselves into a corner and decided to just cut away and cut back and just pretend everything is fine. Also, why is Peter worried about Kingpin falling to his death, but not the helicopter crashing into people? Oh, this show is so mature, people die. So far, 2 villains haven't died, despite clearly being in a situation where they should have died, or at least suffered severe damage, and no reasonable reason is given as to why they survived. Why does MJ just suddenly cry and then go with some dude from the theater? Only context we got was them hugging? Like, this kind of just comes out of nowhere and isn't really... It doesn't contribute anything. It's just there. It's just there for, like, a half-assed dramatic ending to an episode. Episode 3 does showcase some interesting lighting and visual direction, and there is a good B-plot regarding Harry having to go through legal stuff regarding his dad's will. Nothing amazing, but good enough I felt the need to point it out. And from now on, I'll try not to be as nitpicky as even with the last episode being a lightning round, it was still longer than I would have liked. Anyways, this episode's villain is the Lizard. I would have liked them to have introduced Kirk Connors earlier, at least in a scene, as here is just suddenly revealed at the start of the episode that Connors and Peter has been working on something revolutionary like regrowing limbs. To deal with this, it seems the writers decided to just have him act and speak like a cliche scientist.
He should be strung up till his eyeballs are pecked out by genus Strigoformis.
Owls. I don't think they actually like eyeballs.
Bro sounds like 6'5", nonchalant dreadhead over here. Then in the next scene, a truck driver gets a gun pulled on him, but puts away the gun because the other guy has a bigger gun. Whatever. I said no nitpicking. But what's not nitpicking is how Spidey's actions lead to the truck crashing into a larger truck, leading to a large explosion which could have harmed people. This here is the writer sacrificing deeper elements of the story, that being Spidey's character writing for spectacle. This episode does showcase JJ, but this is a weak version of him, as even fans of this show will admit to. Anyways, there's also a scene where MJ comments on Harry's anger, yet this was never really shown in previous episodes. And the few times he was angry, it would have made sense for just about anyone to be angry. I mean, this episode alone, he's dealing with his dad's death, he sees Spider-Man who he thinks killed his dad, and he was hunted by a lizard dead set on killing him. Makes sense for him to not be in the best of moods. And this anger is never again brought up for the rest of the show. While we're on weird MJ stuff, MJ kisses Peter again. 2/3 of the episodes ends with them kissing, and yet they're still with the will they won't they plotline. Even though Peter hasn't rejected any of the kisses, he's gone in and kissed her back too. And you can't even go with the bullshit of, oh, at the end of the first Spider-Man movie, he rejected her when he and Harry conversate literally in this show, in this episode, about how Peter wants to be with her. There's no indication that they kept that plotline from the movie at all. Now, one positive I left out was this episode really honing in on the Lizard's regeneration ability, as normally we only see the Lizard regenerate Connor's arm and that's it, but here we see the Lizard's regeneration on display multiple times, which is cool, but that's severely hampered by the way the Lizard dies, as he is the third villain to fall, and that being the way he loses. Now, this wouldn't be that big of a deal, as you could argue that the Lizard died immediately, except he clearly didn't, as he was able to shed a poorly animated tear before dying, which leads to question as to why he didn't just regenerate the fall damage. Very disappointing episode, had potential but was ruined by the end of it. And also, I still don't understand why Kirk Connors snuck back into his lab, as that reason is never shown, and it just makes me wonder how he even got there without getting caught in the first place. On to the next episode. Now the villain for this episode is Shikata, who is basically bootleg Kraven. She likes the thrill of the hunt, only here it's more so focused on the honor of fighting and potentially losing to a great warrior. Now, if they properly fleshed out this difference, then I could see as to why they would decide to make her instead of using Kraven the Hunter. Unfortunately, they don't properly flesh her out, as she has weird force powers and a connection to the moon, but her sword is also important, so when it snaps, she fades away. What I'm showing and telling you right now is effectively all that we get out of her. Oh, and she has her own henchmen for some reason, but that's also never explained. This just leads to her either feeling like a weird, worse version of Kraven, or a villain that they just threw stuff at the wall for and left it at that, or the worst of both of the two things I just said. Now, the fights with her do have some good choreography and cinematography. However, this is undercut by Spider-Man not using his web shooters that much, leading to this just feeling like a fight that could happen between any two fighters that know martial arts. Also, for some reason, cuts and wounds in Spidey are super inconsistent, disappearing and then suddenly reappearing out of nowhere. And the way MJ figures out that the way to beat Shikata is by snapping her sword feels like a bit of an ass pull so that Spidey could win the fight. On to episode 5. Now, this episode has a scene that makes it seem as if Harry is going to commit suicide by jumping off a bridge, but ends with a girl flirting with him. Now, this episode does have scenes of him being sad and acting a bit different, but we don't see much of that after this episode. That being said, Harry does have funny scenes here, with there even being a nice dynamic between MJ and Peter where they joke about Harry finding a girl he likes. It's of course revealed that Harry's love interest is this episode's villain, the Talon, but they're also having this evil-ass smile that makes her look like an evil alien from a Bratz movie. There's also funny scenes between Harry and Talon.
Why don't you stay here with me instead? I've got a much better way to get your adrenaline going.
There's also a good scene between Peter and Harry where Harry asks Peter to hang out, as Harry needs someone to lean on right now, but Peter declines because of Spider-Man duties, and Harry tries to pretend that it's fine. Really good scene. Like I said, the best part of this show and this episode is Harry. However, this is then ruined by stuff like Spidey with no explanation just being able to find the Talon. A scene where a helicopter attacks, but Spidey's spider sense doesn't go off, with the scene being full of questionable writing decisions, such as how the Talon gets away after getting shot, and then the episode just ends with her deciding to end things with Harry over call. That's it. It's as if out of nowhere, and as unsatisfactory as I'm putting it as. Oh, you get this gross shit.
Listen, why don't we go down to Monty's Donut House? Scarf down about a dozen glazed. We can talk.
What about a half glazed, half chili?
You've got a deal.
Even if I give the benefit of the doubt, eating donuts and then chili doesn't go well with each other. And if I take it as it clearly wants me to take it, this is disgusting. Episode 6 is where we're introduced to another girl named Indy. As I'm sure you can guess, this leads to an epic love triangle by the end of the episode. The villains for this episode are a group of KGB agents called the Pterodactyls. Terrible name. Now, this episode is full of nonsensical things being claimed and or happening, such as the KGB agents claiming they have a bomb that can liquefy people's organs without destroying property, which does in fact go off at some point, and you guessed it, destroys property. Doesn't hurt anyone though. If you want to claim that they were just saying that's a bluff, fine, but why have it be something so stupid sounding when a regular bomb, which they did have, would have been enough for the hostage situation they were in. There's other stuff like, because they're KGB agents, they have these advanced guns. They aren't advanced at all. They shoot these weird key blast shit from them and they don't do anything. And if that wasn't bad enough, they seem to have like a 5-second cooldown. They shoot a shot and just wait around till they shoot another one. Anyways, the episode ends with the new girl kissing Peter in front of MJ. How dramatic! Terrible episode. It even has a terrible name. The Tight Squeeze. They can go squeezing this dick. And if you think this episode is weird or nonsensical, just take a look at the next one. This one is about a girl who gets to a weird science accident and causes her obsession with Spider-Man to turn her into having hallucinations that she can talk to him at any time and she has to follow his orders. The B plot is MJ trying to get closer to Peter and make the shift. And she wants to do this by having her and Peter share something personal to each other, which doesn't make any sense since she knows Peter is with another girl. I mean, she saw him kissing last episode. So either this is a writing error or MJ here is a terrible person, which honestly, it's probably the latter. But then Harry and Peter talk about Peter's situation with MJ and never bring up Indy. Okay, even if Peter and Indy aren't actually a thing, why doesn't Harry bring it up? He's brought it up before and later on in the show. Peter and Indy are confirmed to be dating, or in the very least in the early stages of forming something serious. Peter then has to read out loud the secret that MJ wanted him to read so that they could get closer to each other.
Mine first, okay?
When I was little and my parents were fighting, I would hide in my closet and pretend I was a stowaway on a ship. It was grimy and cold there, but I was happy because I wasn't stuck in the house. Nobody fought. Wow.
Say no more. I'll read yours.
No, don't.
I couldn't believe what he wrote. Go ahead, read it.
To MJ, I confess that no one else in the world knows I'm allergic to grouper, the fish.
See, I actually like this tidbit she wrote, and it could show facets of her personality that we wouldn't have known about if it wasn't for the fact that this is the first time she's doing something like this with Peter, and she then gets mad at him when the first thing he gave wasn't this deep hidden thing about himself. Now, I'm not putting this down as a writing flaw, more so just something that I find annoying, as MJ in this show seems to just suck as a person, as she tends to do in most of her adaptations, but it still sucks to see, hence why I'm complaining about it. Anyways, crazy girl in this episode overhears MJ and Harry talking about Spider-Man and her relationship with him, and the crazy chick gets mad and deludes herself into kidnapping MJ. Then she somehow has this ridiculously dangerous and seemingly complex weapon. Spider-Man comes in to try and save the day. Crazy girl tries to test her alleged ESP on Spider-Man and ask him what his secret identity is. MJ then uses this to her advantage and glocks the crazy girl across the face, which then leads to the following scene where, Spider-Man actually cares about bystanders for once, which is nice. Chaos ensues, and Christina, the crazy chick, ends up with, you guessed it, falling. Oh, and guess what? She doesn't fucking die! So far, 4 out of the past 7 episodes have had a major character fall in what should be a fatal death. Only one of them have died, the one with the healing factor who didn't die on impact. Whoa, that makes so much sense, and it's so mature. This episode then ends with MJ seeing the parallel between her and Christina being obsessed with a dude. Which, I guess, it's nowhere near the same extent, but I see what they're going for. That being said, this episode still sucked balls. Episode 9 starts with a robbery at this truck. Spider-Man sees this and stops the truck and whips up their path to escape, but then they throw this bag at him and he grabs it and gets shocked by it. Where is his spider sense? For certain iterations of Spider-Man, I can understand since their spider sense aren't all that, but this guy can sense crime. Why didn't he sense any danger from this thing? Also, after last episode and seeing him tank Electro so much, why is this capable of bringing him down for so long? Anyways, these biker guys are shown to be smart by them talking about the exact speed they need to weave through these chains. They are then shown to do this ridiculously difficult feat, yet aren't fast enough to react to Spider-Man hitting them with his webs. Now, if his speed feats were consistent, this would be fine, but they aren't, so this is really more of a knock against Spider-Man's lack of consistency feats-wise. We are then shown Flash, who is absolutely hilarious.
I'll have you know, smart guy, I'm off to meet with my tutor. Bet you don't have one of those.
He then goes off to meet with his tutor, and turns out Flash is a test subject and gets injected with this weird serum. Flash is now smart.
How do you feel?
Like I'm gonna have to open a can of whoop-ass if these blood proteins don't coagulate. Whoa, where did that come from?
Or something. I get increasing his intelligence, but how does he just gain this level of knowledge and vocabulary? Regardless, Flash is absolutely hilarious in this episode, as I've already said.
Ladies, such supple visions of collegiate loveliness I have seldom beheld.
Smooth. But that love token on your neck suggests you've beheld plenty.
Sally Johnson.
Flash Thompson, the honor of your acquaintance is entirely my own.
I just wish he appeared in other episodes. Harry's funny too. These two are hardcore carrying this episode and the show at large.
I tell you, whatever you think of that big loogie, you gotta give him credit. He must be dating the human blowfish. Or maybe that vacuum cleaner that picks up bowling balls. Or, you know, maybe it's those giant mosquitoes they've spotted on the football field.
Thanks for the attempted fake out, but it doesn't bother me. Indy and I are on a hot and juicy story.
Hot and juicy?
Connecting with Indy through mutual interests makes a lot more sense than simple chemistry.
Well, I know about biology, and look in Indy's eyes says monogamy. Whew.
In the following scene, it's revealed the serum is not only temporary, but also makes you weaker and could potentially lead to death. Seeing with how smart the serums seem to make them, why don't they just help the mad scientist make an improved serum instead of just stealing money from him? Robbers rob a store, Spider-Man fights them, loses, but notice that they have the same mark on their necks as Flash does. Weird that this Spider-Man notices such a small detail given that he's so dumb. But at least they're doing something to try and portray Peter as smart outside of just having him spout scientific jargon. We are then shown the serum's effects on Flash, showing him get weaker due to the serum. It then turns out Flash is so stupid he could die from the serum. Flash then gives advice to the mad scientist to help advance the serum. I don't understand why this didn't happen earlier with the biker twins, but whatever. Turns out they need someone smart. Not entirely sure why when they already have smart people here, but whatever. Flash gets Peter to come, who is with J. Jonah Jameson. J. Jonah Jameson sucks, but of course you already knew that. So instead of Peter showing up, Spider-Man shows up to help break up this operation. They fight, they're able to tranquilize Spider-Man, Flash betrays the bad guys, and Spider-Man fights the guys while weakened. This fight is honestly really entertaining. It's fun watching Spider-Man have to go out against what are essentially just buff dudes. The mad scientist then holds a weakened Flash hostage. Spider-Man then uses a tracker that has never come up before, even though it would have been helpful. At least he's actually being resourceful this episode, so that's nice. In general, this episode would actually be really good if it wasn't connected to the rest of the show. Cool fight happens on the train. The lighting and Spider-Man being weakened as he fights someone with a gun in the dark actually makes this fight extremely entertaining and gives us some real stakes and tension. Here he is able to re-engineer the serum in a way to save Flash. We finally get a scene of Peter's intelligence being used in a cool way regarding saving people. This is actually an aspect of Spider-Man I wish was done better in shows in general. So extreme praise and props to the show, at least for this episode, for doing that. Alright, let's get through this so we can get to the episodes people actually care about. So this episode starts with another example of the writers being indecisive as to whether or not to have Peter's spider sense be useless or be all-knowing, as his spider sense goes off because there's a bomb that wouldn't even be around long enough to hurt him. Now you could argue that it's nearby so it could hurt him fine. Not sure how he'll pick up on it, but whatever, that's fine I guess. But it also tells him the time left on the bomb. Anyways, later in this episode, the villain, Silver Sable, breaks into Peter's home because he just happened to capture footage of her doing illegal activities. And they're trying to be sneaky, so Silver Sable tells her henchman to douse the light, and he just shoots a shotgun at it. And then later on, she refuses to kill Spider-Man because he's innocent, yet she goes out of her way to hurt capture college students as hostages and even be willing to kill them, all just because one of them just happened to capture a reflection of them that could blow their cover. But no, Spider-Man, who's actively trying to stop her, she must leave him alive because he's innocent. This is such a horrible episode, I'm not going to spend any more time on it. We've waded through the filler. We survived the mid. But now, we've arrived at the Holy Grail. Episode 8, The Party. Yes, apparently this is the amazing episode that everyone talks about when it comes to this show that truly shows how mature and Sigma it is. So best believe I ain't holding back like I was with the previous episodes. It starts with the Maximum Shock billboard, which isn't even the same one that turns Max Dillon into Electro. Not only that, it says, tiny bottle, big energy. You telling me that the company that paid for this billboard gives out erectile dysfunction medication? The episode then shows Max, who will become Electro as I already mentioned, is being bullied. And apparently he can't hear through the helmet. How can he not hear through this stupid helmet? Anyways, when it's just him in the limo, he then grabs the windshield wiper, starts the car, and then teleports to sitting in front of it and is now driving it. The fact he hasn't come to a full stop due to a crash is very convenient. Also, Peter's spider sense from this happening makes no fucking sense. Once again, he could just sense crime. There are only 3 things guaranteed in life: death, taxes, and Peter's spider sense being incredibly inconsistent. He then takes off the helmet, which from the looks of it, he could have done easily. I guess he didn't want to do that when he was crashing into and potentially killing people in the street. Nice. Also, this clip is so funny. Anyways, someone explained the logic of Spider-Man going through the trunk. With how strong he is, he should be able to break through the window with ease. This episode is actually really funny due to factors outside of his control. Of course, the guy who's bullying Max is named Doug. Imagine being bullied by a guy named Doug. What's actually funny is that this dude is drawn like an Asian, but his last name is Riceman. Riceman. Riceman! That's like if they had the last name of a black character be Kool-Aid Chicken. So anyways, Max is getting manipulated by Doug, Peter gets involved, and then this whole sequence happens. Doug is so lame, he's mad at Peter because he thinks Peter is jealous of him when Max is obviously getting manipulated.
Let's get out of here, Max. Those guys aren't worth it.
Why? Because they wanted me instead of you? Just stay out of it, Peter.
Now, this isn't a flaw writing-wise, it just makes it hard to feel any sort of sympathy for this character when he eventually gets done in. I like how this whole clip could be passed off as a modern-day brain rot YouTube short.
Wow, is that Harry Osborn awake before 6 p.m.?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Sigma party tonight. You there?
I did not edit that. I did not use AI for that. That is exactly what they said, and they will continue to say stuff like that for the rest of the episode.
Max Dillon, you've been chosen to enter the inner circle of the Sigma Brotherhood Council. Follow me.
The sacred inner circle of the Sigma Grand Council.
So anyways, later on, Max gets rejected. So allegedly, according to Brown Table, he goes to the billboard because he sees his name on it. What did Max expect? Did he think he was gonna go up to the billboard and think it was gonna be his sexy naked body on it? World's sexiest man. Like bro just feels like an incel. Why is there such easy access for highly dangerous billboard for just anyone to go up to? And of course this dude throws a fucking beer bottle at this thing, gets hit by the electricity while whole ass lightning hits it at the same time. It zaps him, explodes, zaps him again, and now he looks like a naked lightning demon. A sexy naked lightning demon. No, a Sigma naked lightning demon. Yes. In all seriousness, this looks like shit. His design looks so ass. Apparently there's X-Men in this universe. I thought it was connected to the Raimi movies. Honestly, that's a stupid question to even bother asking anymore. How did he hear the screaming? Does he suddenly have super hearing? Dude handles all this electricity, gets knocked out of the window, and he's still conscious. Truly a Sigma alpha male. Why does Spider-Man get so harmed by electricity, yet the other dude tanked a shit ton of it? The electricity in this fight in general is super inconsistent. There are times when Spider-Man's tanking it all, and there are times where he's getting absolutely beat to shreds by it. This episode then starts coming to a close, and Max is just missing. No one brings him up except when Peter just says, I hope wherever Max is, he's better. How does no one know that he's Max, especially when Max, as Electro, went on a whole rant about all the things the bullies did to him? From Peter's POV, he just killed Max and then refers to it as a good thing. No one knowing who Electro is makes this episode a lot less interesting. MJ could have empathized with Max since she kinda knew him, and Harry should have been against Max since he didn't know him, and Harry doesn't like superpowered individuals seeing him akin with Spider-Man. Episode 11 is very strange in how it seems ambiguous if people know Max was Electro. I don't know if I'm missing something, but didn't they not know before? How did this get out? And if not, is it just that people think he went missing? Anyways, the episode starts with Electro terrorizing these two dudes. Spider-Man then saves them from getting sucked in this weird, whatever this thing is. They tell him about this weird ghost, and he doesn't believe them, even though he's literally already fought against someone with weird magic moon powers, a literal lizard, a speedster, and, oh, I don't know, Electro? On that same note, there is a girl in the class who gets called crazy for saying that she's being stalked by what she believes to be Electro. What? Anyways, later in a classroom, everyone says Max was a troubled kid, when no one really saw any of that. the way the voice actors say this, it kind of feels like they're just talking shit about him. Electro then tries to turn his professor into an electric being like him, an experiment that doesn't work. Apparently he needs more electrical power, but why does he need more when he mostly just had the sign? Even if you assume lightning hit the sign, he didn't even touch the sign directly, and in this episode the teacher has the sign and the electric breaker. Spider-Man's intelligence is so inconsistent. A few episodes prior, he is able to reverse engineer the serum to save Flash, and here he's too stupid to realize the cable doesn't extend far enough. And he moves at a leisurely pace, like the chick who looks like she should have died 5 minutes ago doesn't matter. What even goes on here? How does this even work? Spider-Man becomes a conductor and brings Electro into this thing? Harry then thinks good of Spider-Man for murdering someone. Harry already hates him for being a murderer, and Spider-Man goes and kills his classmate? Am I the only one seeing this? Peter then claims that Max wasn't as evil as they thought, that he just wanted respect and companionship, when he literally tortured a classmate, then murdered them, tortured multiple other classmates, and a teacher, tried forcibly turning two people into an electrical being like him. Oh, and I almost completely forgot. Electro quite literally stalked a teenage girl, broke and entered into her home, pulled some lame horror movie ass shit on her, all because she smiled at him. Now it's on to the two-part finale to the show. Part 1, The Calm Before the Storm. Mind control episode, so not too much to analyze, and more so just sets up how terrible the second episode is. To start the villain's introduction, it's actually pretty cool. It sets up the stakes quite early and shows a genuine threat. Everything is so cold and calculated, so there's no dialogue to ruin a scene or make the villain seem stupid. My only issue is more so a reveal in the next episode regarding the drugs used to keep them sedated. I love how even in this fantasy world, this Spider-Man just shoves Mary Jane off, and while she screams for her life, he sets up for an epic save in the least romantic way possible. Also, her dialogue about wanting to be two different people is so on the nose, it's not even funny. The first time I heard her say this, I knew it was a fantasy. Peter's girlfriend knows he's double dipping. I thought Spider-Man was with MJ and Peter was with her. I love how the KGB just gave them mind control powers. I know this is all fantasy, but so weird as I watched that. All this shit could just happen in an episode. Harry getting crushed by a falling sign and only his wrist being sprained is so funny, but not really a stretch, I guess. Not sure why the mind control duo would put this in Peter's mind. This just ends up being another way he could realize this isn't reality. Also, apparently this version of Spider-Man sent Kraven to a Ukrainian gulag. Alright, so Mary Jane is basically publicly dating Spider-Man, but for some reason Spider-Man wants to unmask himself. I guess he was guilty about the 2-for-1 since as Peter he's dating Indy and as Spider-Man he's dating MJ. But then to unmask himself, he decides to take Mary Jane to a random, very open alley and unmask so it's only him in her life, I guess. But everything in the previous episode so far has told us he prefers Indy, with him outright saying it in a scene. So this just comes from left field. And why in a barely hidden public alley? I get it's probably because it's all a fantasy, but usually in scenarios like this, it's a fun what if with clear thoughts presented on the character's psyche. It feels all that's on Peter's mind is fighting random villains and his threesome, which is actually pretty insightful given how terrible this version of him is. The most charitable interpretation is that Peter feels guilty about his double life with both girls and is finally committing to MJ in this scene. So anyways, Kraven then comes in and ends up murking MJ. Insta-cut to Mary Jane's grave implies that Kraven just watched Spider-Man through the entire ordeal and left, I guess. Then a whole funeral service and burial happened before cutting back to the scene, and it's so funny. Now it's time for the actual plot. Why did they mind control Spider-Man to kill Kraven when they could just mind control Kraven? Was them being arrested part of the plan? If anyone tells Peter MJ isn't dead, or he just sees Harry without his cast, the plan just fails. Also, how would Kraven actually escape the Ukrainian gulag so many times just to keep going to New York specifically? Also, why did they even fight with the Russians here? Literally added nothing to the rules and will 100% be used to snap Peter out of it. Also, the fact that he mind controls some random dude to speak it to him in his dream, I guess. They just found the most sophisticated looking guy in the street and were like, this guy looks like the type of guy to bring Spider-Man into a murderous rage. I really want to know Kraven's timeline. He captures people for the KGB to experiment on, but at one point got sent to the gulags by Spider-Man, escapes and gets sent again, only to escape again and keep going back to New York. Whatever, at least they did the plan at night and quite fast. Still crazy that it took 6 hours, only 6 hours, for them to fight, MJ get his tombstone, and buried in 6 hours. What the fuck is this timeline? Also, Silver Sable being straight up dead for the memory. Why were so many useless details added only for Spider-Man to figure it out? Also, how could they not just walk up to Kraven and mind control him? Especially with how he fights throughout the show. They just suck, I guess? I like how this random news station has a map on every backdoor location in Manhattan. Usually that's reserved for the Daily Wire, but sure, I guess. J. Jonah does say that they are a competitor. They're so lazy with Spider-Man's suit that it just phases on him now. Why don't they just mind control him again? They sense he was coming, but nah. I like how they torture Mary Jane with dinosaur flashes. Now we get to the most retarded part of this episode. The big turning point. How the hell did Mindy make it to the roof faster than Spider-Man and the twins? If the twins can just mindfuck someone from just a glance he had with the guy, how can they not just kill Kraven? How are they ever captured before this? Also pretty funny that's implied the fact she got choked out was the cause of her coma. I like how in the police car, they recovered easily from an IV drip of sedatives straight into their bloodstream, but this one injection is enough to stop the brother. Also, the brother alone is what made Spider-Man hallucinate the push. Also, Spider-Man being pushed to kill Kraven and all the death that happens in this episode would be much more impactful if Spider-Man didn't kill so many of his villains before this. So he gives up being Spider-Man with some speech that being a hero causes everyone pain, but I have a different interpretation of the ending. Peter himself causes everyone's pain, and he doesn't understand it. Peter pushes all blame onto Spider-Man and doesn't take enough accountability for himself. Mindy being in a situation due to Peter's hasty lies, MJ being hurt by being led along by the two men she loves, and Harry kind of always had a grudge against Spider-Man, so this ending doesn't change much. It just feels like they didn't know how to end the show and force this ending in. An ending where Peter never grows and stays childish throughout. All I can say is,
goodbye, Spider-Man.